day 4 of 14 days thinking about Jane Seymour, and today we're thinking about Jane's early life and her time at Wolf Hall. Now, very, very little is known about Jane's early life, partly because it wasn't expected that she would go on to hugely great things. As my main source for this information, I should have brought it up with me, I'm using Elizabeth Norton's wonderful biography on Jane Seymour. What she does very well is to kind of fill in the blanks, imagine what is the most likely scenario. So I'm going to tell you what we think we know about Jane, but you also need to know, not to take this with a pinch of salt, but to know that we don't know very much concrete about her early years. As with many of these women who weren't considered particularly important, the birth date wasn't recorded. We think it's probably 1508, 1509. At her funeral, she had 29 ladies riding in procession, and apparently that was a marker of how many years she'd been alive. So it's possible that when she died, she was 29 years old, and she was probably born at Wolf Hall. While there are no specific details of her education, she most likely could read and write. We know this because she owned books. She also signed her name very neatly, so it didn't look like, somebody who was just attempting to write their name. She could probably speak French because we know that she conversed with Chapuis. It's likely that she knew some Latin. She was educated at home, most likely by the family chaplain. She will have also learnt sort of music and dancing. And we also know that she was very adept at needlework. And the chances is this was something that she did while she was still living at home at Wolf Hall. She was a keen horsewoman. She loved to ride and she loved to go hunting. She was closest in age to her brother Thomas Seymour, and they had huge grounds at Wolf Hall, so it's most likely that she spent her time with him as her closest sibling. They will have spent a lot of time outdoors. Wolf Hall, where she grew up, won't have looked how it did today. It was a very pleasant manor house. It had huge grounds. A survey taken around the time that she would have been there showed over 1,000 acres of land. It was a working farm. It had orchards. It had kennels with hunting dogs in there. So probably a really idyllic place to grow up, especially when you've got lots of siblings to play with. It seems that she was quite closeted for most of her life. She didn't leave England. She wasn't off in a European court like Anne Boleyn was. Her sister Elizabeth was actually married before her. Elizabeth went and married Gregory, the son of Thomas Cromwell. Match wasn't even considered for her until her 20s. That obviously fell through. So it seems that she had quite a quiet but possibly idyllic childhood. So that's really all we know, or even half know, about Jane's early years. She's been described as having the most humble background of any queen. This often causes her to be really contrasted with Anne Boleyn. And obviously in some ways she was completely different to Anne Boleyn. One had light hair, one had dark hair, one had been living on the continent, one had been living in a country house in England for all of her life. So they were very different, but we do have to be careful to assume that this means in personality she was completely different too. We can't assume that she was this mousy, timid woman who wouldn't say boo to a goose and who was just a complete yes woman, as opposed to the fiery Anne, because as we'll come on to, there are definitely instances of her having a mind of her own and having some real passion there as well. That's the young Jane. So I will see you tomorrow when we're going to talk about her time at court, both in the court of Catherine of Aragon and then later at the court of Anne Boleyn. See you then.